In the modern gaming world, Naughty Dog is one of the most acclaimed studios around, and as much as their games tend to annoy me with their obsessive hand-holding and overlong walking from place to place segments, I can certainly understand that while their games aren't really for me, I can see where the praise comes from. I can be pretty harsh to this studio because it's clear that the people working there are almost unfathomably talented, and there's certainly a huge market for their brand of award-bait cinematic action games. Like, these games aren't for me, but I can totally acknowledge that. And I don't want to discount the amount of talent and passion that goes into these games. But over the last few years, attitudes towards Naughty Dog have shifted pretty dramatically, and I don't think it's hard to see why. They have a reputation for being grossly overindulgent and over-reliant on milking The Last of Us instead of putting any effort into creating new IP or trying to break new ground with their gameplay, which is something that they genuinely used to be really good at. You can talk all the smack you want about their over-reliance on cinematic third-person action game formulas, but frankly, that formula wouldn't exist without them. And there's also no denying that their dedication to storytelling and presentation was extremely influential in the AAA gaming sphere. Again, these games aren't for me, but I also recognize that there's a ton of people who they are for. But with constant praise comes complacency, and that's where we find Naughty Dog today, in a constant cycle of just reliving the glory days as much as possible while not really putting much thought into what's coming next. Despite Naughty Dog being part of the PlayStation A team, it's extremely unclear what they're working on next, and so far every update we've gotten about The Last of Us multiplayer spin-off has been entirely negative. It's really starting to feel like this studio has completely forgotten what made them popular in the first place, now seemingly content to just play it safe with constant milking of the glory days and the occasional lazy overpriced remake or PC port of the glory days. At the time that I'm recording this, it's the morning of September 26th, which I've been informed by Naughty Dog's Twitter is The Last of Us Day. Now, quite honestly, I don't know the significance of The Last of Us Day, and at this point I'm too scared to ask. But I know it's a day that a lot of Naughty Dog fans were looking forward to because with how little this studio has been giving their community in the way of new content or development roadmaps or literally anything regarding The Last of Us multiplayer game that's allegedly still in development, this really would have been an excellent time to reassure fans that they still know what they're doing. It was a great time to reassure fans that despite the silence and lack of communication, this is still the Naughty Dog they fell in love with. The Naughty Dog known for crafting awesome cinematic experiences and not just treading water and surviving off self-indulgence. Which is why a lot of people were pissed when the dog announced that Last of Us Day 2023 would not be talking about anything new and instead be focused on merch. Fucking merch. Meaning that at a time in which a lot of people believe Naughty Dog to just be treading water and surviving off self-indulgence, Naughty Dog decided it was time to tread water and be self-indulgent.
Nice execution.
You're doing terrific.
Need I remind you that this is the same company that tried to tell us that the $70 feature incomplete remake of The Last of Us 1 was actually the most meticulously built and crafted project that the Naughty Dog peeps had ever worked on. And remember, that $70 feature incomplete remake is the only thing that Naughty Dog has released in over 3 years at this point. And also remember that this $70 feature incomplete remake was released on PC completely broken and borderline unplayable, and Naughty Dog's head Neil Druckmann literally refused to acknowledge there was a problem with it, let alone apologize to the fans of his studio that he took advantage of by knowingly releasing the game in this state. But if you need more of an explanation as to why Naughty Dog has the reputation that they do today, let's just look at their release schedule. This studio really took off during the late PS2, early PS3 era, or at least that's when they really started becoming a household name and not just the funny Crash Bandicoot guys. Which, fucking rest in peace the days of 3D platformers by Naughty Dog. Like, seriously, make another 3D platformer and I would completely get off your back. But during the 2000s and 2010s, Naughty Dog was reliably putting out a game every other year or so, with the longest wait between games being the 3-year gap between The Last of Us 1 in 2013 and Uncharted 4 in 2016. But then Naughty Dog seemingly tried to prove that that was an anomaly because literally the year after Uncharted 4 they released Lost Legacy. But that's where the Naughty Dog content drought began, and it's been painfully evident ever since. It was a 3-year wait between Lost Legacy and Last of Us 2, and Last of Us 2 itself had a content drought that a lot of people seem to just forget about, because despite Naughty Dog cutting the multiplayer in order to spin it off into its own project, that again, we still have no ETA on and have not seen a single second of gameplay for, Last of Us 2 still launched for full price, which, like, yeah, I guess that's not 100% worth blowing up an orphanage over, but it certainly wasn't the best gesture towards the community that made this franchise popular in the first place. Like, seriously, I'm surprised more people don't talk about this. Like they cut the multiplayer from Last of Us 2 and insist on still selling it for full price. And then 3 years after launch, we still haven't seen a single second of gameplay. And we have no idea when that multiplayer is even coming. Like, what have you guys been doing this whole time? You cut it from the full-priced game and insisted on not dropping the price, and you still haven't shown anything to justify that. Like, literally nothing. What have you been doing this whole time? You cut it from the base game because it was too big and ambitious, but where is it? I just think it's funny when people look at Last of Us 1, the remake, and they're like, oh my god, Naughty Dog is so greedy. They're selling us a full price game with no multiplayer. And it's like, bro, were you not paying attention before? Like, the only reason they did that is because you already proved they could get away with it. I have no doubt in my mind that if there was more outrage over Last of Us 2 being full price without the multiplayer, The Last of Us Part 1 would not have launched for full price as well. But anyways, the point I'm getting at here is that Naughty Dog used to reliably put games out every 2, maybe 3 years, and they were always super communicative about what they were working on and what was coming next. So even if the wait was longer, you knew what you were waiting for, which is why the community is in such a rough state right now. Because if you're a fan of this studio, you have no idea when that Last of Us multiplayer game is coming out. You have no idea what it's even going to look like, because apparently Bungie came in and just shat down the throats of whoever was working on it. Which, like, if it was in a bad state, then by all means, shit down their throats. But also, again, what have you been doing this whole time if some notes from Bungie caused you to completely change course? But also, you have no idea what the next single-player project is. You have no idea when you're going to see the next single-player project. And despite there not having been a release from Naughty Dog in over 3 years now, you have no idea how much longer you're going to be waiting. And then, in the middle of all this, along comes this announcement that on The Last of Us Day 2023, the 10-year anniversary of this franchise, by the way, a day that a lot of people were really hoping would come with an update on games, you know, the reason people follow this franchise in the first place, Naughty Dog is instead opting to talk just about new merch for the same games they've been milking for years on end, and the replies to this tweet really highlight what I mean. Very disappointing. I'm a big Last of Us fan, but having no game or TV announcements for the 10-year anniversary is disappointing. June 2020, the last Naughty Dog game came out. September 2023, we have nothing to share on anything. And that's from Pio, Jesus Christ. I haven't been this excited to skip something since the last day of my senior year in 1993. Druckmann ruined you. Hennig deserved better. Whatever, I'll start paying attention again when you actually have something to say. Celebrating the memories of your past success doesn't sound fun or interesting. The Last of Us Day 2023 merch just got leaked. You guys still make games, right? With all due respect, then why celebrate the damn day at all? Comes off like a cynical attempt to sell more merchandise, instead of being more quid pro quo and delivering something more worthwhile to consumers beyond tertiary cash grab attempts. Oof, embarrassing. I mean, I would feel embarrassed if a criticism by people who sell $20 armors to whales shut down my entire operation on a multiplayer that was so ambitiously ambitious it lost its ambition. With literally nothing worth showing on a 10-year anniversary. Ball drop. Thank you for letting us know and saving us the time. I really don't mean to sound needlessly mean towards this studio, but the thing is, I really don't feel like I'm being needlessly mean. Naughty Dog is one of the most respected studios in the entire industry, and what they do will influence the behavior of others. So I think it's understandable why I get a little frustrated seeing a studio of this stature just sitting around licking their own buttholes for 3+ years with no end in sight. You have the funding of Sony, the attention of the entire industry. You could literally do anything you want. You can make any game you want. You can take any risks you want, and you would instantly be given the benefit of the doubt by absolutely everyone. And yet the people calling the shots for this studio are perfectly content to do literally nothing. I truly want this studio to get its shit together, because the people doing the grunt work are genuinely some of the most talented in the entire industry. The fact that Naughty Dog consistently manages to get their games looking as good as they do on hardware that is hilariously underpowered for it is honestly astonishing. I can only imagine what these devs could do if they were given literally anything at all to do. I don't know what's going on with Naughty Dog, but I genuinely hope they get it together and start innovating again. Because if that new IP they've been teasing ends up being just another cinematic third-person action game with lots of slow walking and overlong cutscenes, I will not be a happy camper. And at this point, I don't think the Naughty Dog base will be either. Toodles.